Good evening. Welcome, those of you who have joined us tonight, to our first ever webinar. We're going to be telling you a little bit about our new class for high school and academy students here at PUC in conservation technology. I think I know many of you. My name is Aimee Wyrick, and I'm the chair of the biology department. And I'm very pleased to introduce to you Dr. Scott Butterfield, who is the Clark Professor of Conservation Technology, which is a new position here in the biology department. And he's going to be teaching this class starting in January. And it's a bit of a kickoff to our new major in conservation technology that is already in the works here at PUC and is a very exciting new discipline. Or a preparation for a discipline that is fairly new in the world of conservation and biology. So anyway, Dr. Scott Butterfield, I will let him take it from here and answer questions. And there will be time at the end for questions. He'll tell you about the class, and I hope you enjoy.
Well, thank you very much, Aimee.
You're welcome.
And thanks to everybody for joining us this evening. I'll get this slideshow started here. As Aimee mentioned, we'll be kicking off our new conservation technology degree program by teaching this high school course in winter quarter. Sorry. Yeah, and you know, we already talked about this. I think one of the really exciting parts of this is I'm going to try to bring not only, you know, my work and experience from being a professor here at Pacific Union College, but I'm also a senior scientist, you know, who actually uses conservation technology as part of my job at the Nature Conservancy. So first and foremost, before we get into sort of the what is conservation technology, it's the why is conservation technology such a cool, important, and emerging topic right now. I think all of us are confronted, whether you live in California or whether you live in other Western states or across the entire United States, we're all confronted with huge environmental challenges. Things like drought, extended drought, things like climate change, increasing, as we just saw in Kentucky, increasing severity of tornadoes outside of this season when we normally have those. All of those things have collectively led to this really important time in our society. In fact, it's a new geologic age called the Anthropocene. And the Anthropocene is basically this realization that we are confronting these huge environmental changes, huge things like climate change, which are going to be very difficult to address. Now, the really positive thing and the really exciting thing about something like conservation technology is all of these environmental challenges are happening at a very similar time to what people have coined as the third industrial revolution. So we have all these big environmental challenges, but we also have all of these rapidly expanding technologies. And one of the things we'll learn about in conservation technology is we're at this really exciting time where conservation technology is not all about just applying old technologies that have been developed for other things, but we're in this time period where technologies are being developed with conservation in mind, with environmental science in mind. So it's a really exciting time to not only learn about conservation technology, but as Aimee was talking about, to take a step with us and become some of the first people to have a degree in conservation technology. So now I'll transition to the sort of what is conservation technology. You could certainly, you know, type into your web browser and get a sense about what conservation technology is. And I'll frame this in a couple ways. One is I talk about the conservation technology ecosystem, and on the next slide I'll talk about the conservation technology toolbox, which really gets into what we're actually going to be teaching and talking about in the quarter. So if we think about conservation technology, there are these core technologies that every conservation practitioner, environmental scientist, wildlife biologist, these are the things that all of us use day in and day out in our jobs. These are things like remote sensing, so satellite remote sensing, UAVs and drones. These are things like the geographic information systems, or GIS. But these also include things like applications on your phone. Everybody has a phone at this point. They're really powerful machines, and you can do a lot with them. These extended technologies are technologies that, when I gave this lecture a year ago or 2 years ago, these extended technologies are becoming more and more common, and they're going to start to become these core technologies. The Internet of Things is a really popular topic right now. And these are things like at home, lots of Internet of Things. You might have a smart dishwasher, a smart oven, a smart whatever, lots of smart thermostats and all these other things. The Internet of Things has that same sort of application in an environmental and conservation space. These are things like environmental sensors, camera traps, etc. We also have things like artificial intelligence and virtual reality. And then finally, we have these emerging technologies, which again, just like I said with extended technologies, these are becoming more and more common. You have these emerging technologies, things like blockchain and crypto, alternate proteins, autonomous vehicles that are going to become more and more common, and are going to be things that we're going to touch on in this class and will be part of any sort of conservation technology program. So this is what I refer to then as the Conservation Technology Toolbox. And this is really just kind of a summary of, as we enter this course, both the high school course and our program that we offer here at Pacific Union College, each one of these topics kind of forms the core of conservation technology. And again, these things include things like geographic information systems, remote sensing, well, we'll talk about satellite remote sensing and drones and UAVs, but also includes things like coding and programming. Lots of people ask me all the time about what are the most important things to be a successful conservation biologist. How can I get a job in conservation? And one of the most powerful and ubiquitous skill sets now is coding. All conservation practitioners are going to have an ability to understand and use different coding software packages. And specifically to conservation technology, the importance of that is for manipulating these huge data sets. So as we collect information across really large spatial and temporal scales, you now have these big data sets that you need sort of things like artificial intelligence and coding to help you with. The Internet of Things, which we talked about, specifically what we'll focus on in the high school quarter is on wildlife cameras. And we'll sort of, I'm gonna get to this, but we'll talk about an optional sort of in-person activity where we'll actually go out into the forest here at Pacific Union College and talk about camera trapping and how to set those up and what is the information that you can take from them. Then we'll talk about artificial intelligence. I think most people have probably heard of artificial intelligence or watched a movie with artificial intelligence, but we'll specifically talk about and relate this to our camera traps and how we use artificial intelligence to pull information out of those camera traps, out of those photos to understand, for example, presence, absence of species, how are our species using the forest, how are those species changing over time, etc. Then we'll talk about conservation genetics, which is a rapidly expanding field within the conservation space. And these are things like environmental DNA, and we'll talk about scat dogs. And then finally, we'll talk about app development, because this is a really, really important space as well. As we know, all of us have phones and iPads and all these other things, and we'll talk about how apps, things like iNaturalist, eBird, and eCatch, conservation-specific apps are being developed to help us answer and address these big environmental challenges. So course structure, this will be a 10-week course. We'll teach on Saturdays, on Tuesday nights, I'm sorry, from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night. The course starts January 11th. We'll do 4 synchronous lectures where you'll actually sign on and I'll give the lecture and we'll have an interactive class time with each other. And then we'll have 6 asynchronous lectures where we'll basically have a video and an assignment ready for you. Each lecture period, we will strive to have, a very kind of short lecture and then an interactive assignment for the students. Lectures will focus on introducing students to this new and emerging field, trying to make it as exciting as possible with real-world conservation examples. And I think that's really the power of not only being a professor here at the college, but also being a practicing conservation biologist, is all strives to make these examples as relevant and specific as possible. And then finally, in the last week, on March 15th, we'll do a final presentation where each one of the students will present on a specific topic. And we'll have one optional field site visit, like I said, up here at the Pacific Union College Forest, where we'll spend some time in the forest, kind of learning about these conservation technologies and putting those conservation technologies in practice. So how to sign up? You'll just go to our conservation technology website here at Pacific Union College, so puc.edu/conservation technology. And with that, I will open it up to questions.
Are there any hardware or computer system requirements in order to be able to participate in the class?
Yeah, so the only requirement would, to have access to a computer. Looks like Georgia has a question.
We actually, the last person that asked the question asked the same one we were going to.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's just like taking any other, kind of online course. So as long as you have a computer and connectivity. Looks like we got a question from Lindsay. I had no idea this degree program was so broad. Can you talk about how skilled you need to be at math and statistics? Thank you, Lindsay, for asking that. We're really going to strive both in the high school course, but then also for our more specific college level course. The Introduction to Conservation Technology course is mainly meant to be a very broad introduction to these topics. Specifically math and statistics, there will not be a big kind of heavy math and statistics component to this. But it's mainly, we're teaching this high school course, expecting that most people maybe have never heard of conservation technology or don't necessarily know what conservation technology is and how to use it. So we'll very much be introducing these topics, as a fresh sort of thing. Got a question. What types of coursework will there be? About how much time might it take to do the coursework? That is a great question. So obviously we'll have the one lecture each week, which will be 7 to 8, and at times will be asynchronous. So you'll have one lecture and then probably somewhere between 1 to 2 hours of coursework each week. And that will range from things like developing presentations on topics, reading a journal article and summarizing that for us. There'll be discussion board posts on Canvas, which is our platform here at Pacific Union College. So it will really vary. I think I got one more from Amy. Can you tell us about the optional visit? Yes, so we're going to try to time that for college days here at Pacific Union College. where if people are already signed up for that, we would take a fraction of that time and take them out into the Pacific Union College Forest, where we would be kind of focused on learning about camera trapping. So what is a camera, wildlife camera? How do you install that? What are the sorts of criteria that go into that? And then sort of walk through, probably how we collect that information. It's not going to be required. And I think Aimee wanted me to mention, not just for the course, but probably for that visit as well, that there will be scholarships available. Will students learn about how to do some of the technologies or mostly learn about them? Well, again, a great question. This is mostly geared to be a lecture style course. You'll obviously be doing assignments and interacting with information that we are providing. Because it's not a lab course and because you're not, in person here, unless you do the optional visit with the camera traps, you're not going to be necessarily interacting through this course with these specific technologies. But I will say we will do our best to develop the assignments in a way that are allowing you to interact with these technologies as much as possible. Another one from Lindsay. If a student loves this course and go on to study more in this field, what kinds of careers could they head towards? Another great question, Lindsay. Well, first and foremost, I'll emphasize that the Conservation Technology degree program is not only a very unique one at Pacific Union College, but it's the only undergraduate conservation technology degree program in the United States. So it's a very new and cool and interesting thing here. And it's a great question as far as what sorts of jobs are out there. First and foremost, because it's such an emerging field, I'll just emphasize at the Nature Conservancy where I work, we have 10 conservation technologists that just work in California. So obviously you can go on and become a conservation technologist, somebody that's an expert with these technologies, applying them, showing other people how to use them. But I'll also emphasize that the skills and the technologies that we are learning are going to be broadly applicable in the environmental space, in the wildlife biology space, but then also learning these technologies and learning these skills will allow you to apply them across a range of different, both scientific jobs, but also non-scientific jobs as well. And if you visit our conservation technology website, we have sort of an example of what sorts of specific careers you might expect with a degree program in conservation technology. All right, got another question. What would a typical week look like? So a typical week, I assume, for the course would include, again, so we're going to do 4 synchronous lectures, 6 asynchronous lectures. In those synchronous weeks, you would sign on, you would basically take that course at 7 o'clock. We would give a lecture, we would talk about the assignment, whatever those assignments are, maybe from the previous week, and then make those assignments available for the future week. And those future week assignments would most likely be due at the end of Friday 5 or 6 o'clock at night, or Sunday, depending on the type of assignment. If a student, okay, we already answered that one. I think that was the last question. One more question. Is this only open to SDA students at academies? It's not. It's not. We're making this available to high school students broadly. When is the sign up deadline? That is a great question. I'm going to look to my counterpart at PUC. When is the sign up deadline? January 10th. Thank you, Amy. Yeah, and you'll note in the chats, scholarships are available, and those will be considered on a financial need level, and you can just contact us about that. There's one more question. Is this only available to juniors and seniors? So it is it's a 1 credit course that will give you college credit. I believe if you are a sophomore, all you have to do, it is available. You just need to get approval for that. Would these credits contribute towards a degree? Yes. Another great question. All right. If there are no more questions, I want to thank everybody for signing on this evening. We're really excited about this. We're excited about launching the degree program here at the college, but I'm especially excited about having this opportunity. When we were considering the course and the degree program, it was never in my head that I would have the opportunity to teach this to a high school audience. I have 3 teenagers at home that loves science, so it's really exciting that I'm going to be able to get to share this exciting course. Yeah, so if you have any more questions or want to contact us at puc.edu, we're happy to answer questions as they come. And thank you guys for coming.